Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the channel and to our live. We lost Texas Red Leg here for a minute. There he is. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have two very distinguished fellows who have spent quite a few years of their life serving the country and have some specialties that I think we'd all benefit from. Uh, Tonight we have Cold War Prepper and Texas Red Leg. Before I start, though, I just want to make sure if you guys can hear me and see me, and the two guests as well. Okay, 5x5. So, yep, I guess you guys can hear us all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, I'm going to allow these gentlemen to introduce themselves. So, Houston Lee, take it away.
Well, hi, everybody. I've been in prepping for quite a while. I actually got started back home in El Paso during the Cuban Missile Crisis. My next door neighbor was the civil defense warden for the block, and so he built a cinder block fallout shelter in the backyard. And a young 11-year-old impressionable kid, I read everything he gave me. As a matter of fact, I still have some of those original documents he gave me here at the house. And got drafted in 1970, and so I ended up in the Army Security Agency. You can see up here. My first MOS, military occupational specialty, was I was a 98 Bravo, or a code breaker. And from there, they did away with that. They turned it all over to computers. So I became a 98 Golf, which was a voice intercept operator. So I spent 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, listening to the Russians on the radio, and did that for 21 years, retired as a warrant officer. And since then, I've been doing all human resources work. But I did have a channel on YouTube and on Facebook a while back, focusing on prepping, and then I got kicked off Facebook. So I rejoined YouTube back in February. That's when I met Texas Red Leg, and Farmer's Son and I, all three were on a panel on another channel, and I met the two of them and really enjoyed talking with them and listening to them and understanding what they had to offer. So only been back on YouTube now for less than a year, but really love it. Oh, my specialty? I guess food storage, cooking, and sanitation, and how are you going to take care of disposing of trash and stuff?
There you go.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I'm Texas Red Leg, and my story is not off from Lee's, really, just a little bit further down the line as far as when I started it. I've been into prepping probably, I would say seriously, for probably about 6 or 7 years. Prior to that, I was also in the Army. I was in the field artillery branch my first 4 years, in which I was a fire direction center person, which basically computes the firing data for howitzers to put rounds on target. And I was my actual unit I was stationed at was in Bamberg, Germany, which we were actually an 8-inch self-propelled artillery unit, and we were a nuke capable unit as well. And we were probably 75 kilometers from the Czech border back then, which was still communist. And of course, during when the drawdown, or when the Cold War ended, part of the agreement, and Lee can speak a lot more clear to these particulars, but when the Cold War ended, part of the agreement was no land-based nukes in Europe, is what I understand. So due to that agreement, all the nuclear, artillery, and rocket units had to deactivate or move from overseas rather. And so at that point, I came up for reenlistment. So I reenlisted and went to Army CID, which is the Criminal Investigation Division, which is basically like NCIS that everybody knows, before the Army. And we were mainly enlisted agents, and we did have warrant officers as well. Warrant officer agents were typically in charge of an office, but most of the investigative purview conducted on a daily basis was done by enlisted agents such as myself. And so I did that for 4 years, worked a lot of narcotics, been in some pretty hairy situations, some undercover work and things like that, but also general crimes as well. So I've had quite a run through that area, and ended up going ahead and getting out of the Army after that, and just didn't really wasn't really interested in being a cop or anything. But I did do some law enforcement work, and then I've also done some security work on the side for some, preachers and things like that, more plainclothes type stuff. But that's sort of my story, if you will.
Well, gentlemen, that's actually really amazing, the career the two of you had, and that's why part of the reason, as we had chatted when we first came up with the date and time, was to talk about personal security, assessing threats, because I think one of the things I noticed, and I'll let you guys comment on it, during 2020, there were a lot of people were caught flat-footed during the various riots, regardless of where they came from. We watched a lot of people lock up in public. They didn't know what to do, and they just froze, and they became victims, or they became victims out of stupidity. And so when you gentlemen saw 2020 and all these, from wherever they came from, all these rioters and these criminal events, what were you thinking people should be doing? I mean, what were you seeing that the other folks may not have been seeing? And that's kind of an open-ended question. So,
You want to take that, Lee?
Well, okay. The one that I've really admired, the Koreans who defended their own store. I thought that was just admirable. They kind of had it together. They had a little bit of preparation. The number one thing is, we always say you don't catch a fish unless you have bait on the hook. And the bait on the hook in getting in trouble with these protests and everything else is to be anywhere close to a city center or a large county, state, federal governmental building. And it just so happens here in Austin, all of those are congregated in an area, maybe a 5-block diameter. You have the state capitol, the FBI building, all this other stuff, the federal courthouse. It's all right there in a small 5-block radius. So if you stay away from that area, I think you're going to be pretty safe. And then you just have to be cautious of who you are around you. One of the things I'm telling everybody in my family and those who associate with me is, don't announce anything that gives other people an opportunity to seek you out as a possible enemy. That can be several things. In today's society, I scraped off my Roman Catholic bumper sticker because there's an awful lot of animosity from Protestants and from Muslims towards the Catholics. And by having that on my bumper sticker, all I'm doing is, in a way, being contentious and letting people know that here's a possible enemy for you. If you have a Democrat or a Republican bumper sticker or sign or anything like that, you're marking yourself as a target. So certain religious, political, whatever symbols, signs, etc., on your vehicle, on your shirt, or anything else is going to mark you as a possible target for somebody. And we're pretty much 50-50 divided, so you know that the opportunity's there. Anytime we have a major event like this, nobody knows who you are unless you tell them. So the best thing to do is don't announce who you are. I had a store and I was selling hats, and the hat had that Velcro front on the front of it, and then I sewed another piece of Velcro on the inside here. And so one of them was basically a leftist type of a patch you could put on the hat, and then on the inside there was a rightist or a right, conservative type of a patch. So depending upon where you were, you could put the right patch on the hat and get out of the area. And I sold those like wildfire.
Yeah, blending in.
That's actually really genius. So Redleg, what about you? What were you seeing in the streets that other people weren't seeing?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Lee said. It's removing yourself from a dangerous situation and not even entering into that situation. I think with everything that's going on, I think that blending in is important. Like Lee was saying with the hat patch, being the gray man, these are times where, if something breaks loose, I mean, do you think I'm going to go put on BDUs and run up down the road with a camo backpack? No, I'm just going to be a dude in blue jeans and a hoodie and a normal, backpack, just going down the road. I'm not looking for attention, and like Lee said, with the stickers and the overt ways of identifying yourself, even though you may not think anything about it, that doesn't matter. It matters what your possible, enemy or perpetrator might think about what you're about, and there's so much, lunacy and ill will and evil out there that it doesn't take much to set somebody off or to perceive you as a victim, a potential target, if you will.
No, definitely. And that's good information. That's good advice. A lot of folks weren't paying attention. I had mentioned in one video, and a fellow took a beating in one of the riots. I think it was actually in Dallas, but I could be wrong. And his color palette was wrong. Everyone had dressed very dark on that particular occasion, and he went out in a light blue shirt and khakis, and he just stood out. I mean, even if you didn't know what was going on, your eyes were just drawn to this guy. That's, like you guys said, blending in and not being where trouble is. So it kind of leads us to the next question. Right now, in theory, the riots are done. Of course, it's an election year. Early voting started down here in our Lone Star State. What's your view of imminent threats our fellow Texans and our fellow citizens and preppers need to consider day to day now, in light of the fact there are no, to our knowledge, active riots at the moment? What should they be looking for, and what are the dangers for them? Yeah, my puppy ate my sticker. I put it too close to the floor and he gobbled it up. So
I'll take that one. I think that, and it's a fine line of being, empowered and paranoid, right? I mean, I'm the kind of person that I'm always anticipating a problem. Wherever I go, I assume that there could be a problem in here or wherever I'm going or on the way. So I've already got it in my head that, there's probably going to be an issue of some kind, whether it's traffic or, road rage or carjacking, whatever the case may be, or a robbery in a store, And so I've just got it in my head that the odds of something like that occurring while I'm out or en route to somewhere is probably good. And so I've already anticipated there being a problem. Okay, so then you just go to the next step. Okay, what type of problems could there be? Am I prepared to handle this problem? Am I prepared to evacuate? Do I know alternate routes to leave the area that I'm going to? Things like that you already know your reaction to a certain extent before you ever run into a problem head on, and it's just being aware and knowing your 360-degree security sphere and trusting your instincts, I think, is huge too.
In the greater Austin area, definitely road rage is one of those things you want to be concerned about. And downtown, we've got a homeless problem. And I worked at the homeless shelter. I was the HR director there for 3 years. And one of the things you did not want to do, I used to have to walk 3 blocks away and buy tickets for the movies that we gave to our employees as part of their package for Employee of the Month and things like that. And you did not want to wear the homeless shelter uniform and walk down the streets of Austin. That made you a prime target. They would stop you and complain and everything else. But I think one of the other things is the traffic in Austin is unbelievable. I think it's one of the 5 worst in the U.S. And road rage is so predominant. And so I would just tell you, drive friendly. We used to say here in Texas, drive friendly and drive friendly. And don't tailgate. Leave yourself room to get out. I saw a guy go over 4 lanes of traffic to chase a woman in a car, and he was flipping her off and honking and beating his lights and everything else. He was about to cause a car wreck with everybody else. if I had not left enough space when I was following the car in front of me to where I could pull out and maneuver and get away from that, I would have been caught up in it. Same thing when you're slowing down at a stoplight. Leave yourself room behind the car in front of you so you have an escape route. If you get up right on their bumper, your chances of escaping anything that happens are slim to none, because chances are the guy behind you is going to do the same thing to you. So try to think about, how can I put myself in a position where I won't get caught? My wife knows now, after 40 years of marriage, I will never sit in a restaurant with my back to the door. I was in the vicinity of the Luby's shooting back in the 70s in Killeen, which is about an hour drive away from here. And, that was scary. And I don't want to go through something like that again. So I always take a look at the situation and say, where could the threat come from? What could the threat be? How can I use some common sense and plan an escape route so I can get out of there if I need to? Now that I carry, I also want to think, where's the best place for me to put myself so that I could save others, should there be a need for me to help somebody else and defend their life.
That's a good point, actually, pointing out that not just facing the door, but if you do engage someone in a restaurant, in a wherever you are, what's your cover and concealment? Because and I'm sure we could joke endlessly about people mistaking one for the other, but you don't have a lot of options in a restaurant as to what your cover will be. So no, most definitely. And gentlemen, what are your thoughts of the increasing crime? Are there more criminals, or are they just bolder and they're coming out of the woodwork? What do you think of that?
I think that we've always had crime, of course, and I think a lot of it is lifestyle driven. Some people were just brought up into that lifestyle, and that's what they do. Their daddy was a gangster, and they're going to be a gangster, or whatever. Some of them are bullied into it, whatnot. But there's also a lot of organized crime that people don't think about, and gangs are really organized crime. It's not just couple of dudes hanging out on the corner, or whatnot. I mean, this stuff is a huge enterprise, tax free. And these guys and gals, they're into all sorts of stuff. It's not just, robberies. It's drugs, it's prostitution, it's trafficking, the whole 9 yards, gambling. There's all sorts of illegal gambling operations, and a lot of them run full circle. And those types of entities actually have pretty deep pockets at some level. But you're also going to. I just got back from Vegas, and it's really bad there right now. And there were people just walking into the casinos with a towel or a blanket around them, with no shoes, just walking right through the middle of the walkway through the casino, and looking for, you could tell they were sizing people up, trying to purse snatch or pickpocket or whatever, or just beg for money straight up. But you could tell how desperate some of these people are, because they just live a different world completely. It's not only day to day, it's hour to hour, and
Right.
I think the more desperate people become, the more our antennas have to go up. But I'm not telling people not to be benevolent. That's your personal choice, but just be aware that, being benevolent also has possible consequences. You can be robbed, you can be, assaulted, whatever the case may be. So that's a personal choice that people have to make if they reach in their pocket and give somebody money like that. I personally don't do that. I would rather give to an organization that can
Yeah.
fill out that charity, safely and securely. But I never give money to panhandlers or beggars or anything like that. That's just a personal choice that I make, because number one, I don't want them to know that I have anything, and I just don't want to be in my pockets or my wallet open or anything like that, because there could be more than just one, there too.
Yep.
That's a very good point, and very true. Actually, it's funny. I had someone ask me down in Houston, down on McKinney Street in downtown. he asked me for money, and I said, no, I'm not going to give you money because you'll buy garbage, but I'll buy you food. I'll buy you a sandwich at the store here if you want. And to my surprise, the guy said yes. So I went in there and I bought the man food, but I won't take my wallet out in the street. You're right. That's just looking for a problem.
Alan Graham, and from I believe he's from St. John Vianney Church here in Austin, and Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock bought him his first 3 trucks, but he ran some sandwich trucks among the homeless here in Austin, and would give them clothes, socks, toothpaste, food, bologna sandwiches, and all kinds of stuff. And he did an experiment for about 3 years, and you could buy these Texas or mobile loaves and fishes bucks. So you go down to the church, you gave them a donation, they would give you paper bucks for mobile loaves and fishes, equivalent to what you donated. Then when a panhandler came up to you on the street, you could give them a mobile loaves and fishes buck. They could then use that as money at the mobile loaves and fishes trucks. Every time I gave one away, they threw it away in my face. They did not want dollars that they could only spend on food and clothing. They wanted something that they could spend on other things. And so I stopped giving to them as far as accepting the MLF bucks, and just, made my donations. But that was something else. Some thoughts. Number one, one of the murders we had here in the greater Austin area, the guy had committed a murder, and he was being charged. He was out on bail, and he had an ankle bracelet, and he shot and killed a 17-year-old here in Austin while he was on parole, basically from awaiting his trial for the first murder. And then we've got up in Dallas, Methodist Church. Just this week, I believe it was, guy walked in with an ankle bracelet to see the birth of his child, got into a domestic quarrel with his with the female and the baby, and said that nobody was going to leave there alive today, and he's going to kill the next people to come into the room. And 2 hospital workers went into the room, and they were both killed. And then he was killed by, I believe it was a hospital security guard, an armed guard, might have been an off-duty something or other. But anyhow, when we take a look at it, the number of crimes that are being committed by people who are under suspicion or awaiting trial for a serious crime, especially a crime of violence, and are then allowed to walk the streets and recommit that crime is just unbelievable. One of the things I'm sure Texas Red Light can speak to with his CID experience, but I know that back in the latter portion of the 20th century, we were seeing a lot of the gangs have their new members who didn't have too many tattoos enlist in the Army and the Marine Corps so that they could get combat training, and they'd only be in for 3 or 4 years, get the combat training, and then they were able to take that back to the streets where they could teach their fellow gang members how to fight in the streets, military style. So that's really scary as well. But
that's very true.
And in violence, I think we're seeing a downtick in common sense.
Right before I out of the Army and CID, we had actually started an actual gang unit in CID. And so, yes, it's very true. If you could get through the enlistment process, and even some of them, I think, were able to get security clearances, ironically enough. And so that was a real thing for sure. And I'm sure it still is today.
Oh, yeah. No, that's, well, I have a coworker, actually. They were visiting a city in the Pacific Northwest, which shall remain nameless, but it has problems. I'll leave it at that. And they were walking from a business lunch, and it was the husband and wife, and somebody just came over and clocked the wife, absolutely unprovoked. Of course, he's now fighting with the guy. He said nobody helped. They were recording, and they were complaining that he was hurting the perpetrator. Finally, ironically, a couple from Kentucky happened to be visiting a cousin or a nephew or something, showed up and assisted until law enforcement got there. The guy was in the street 24 hours later with a $500 bail. His wife was suffering the effects of a concussion for a month. And apparently they're having a hearing now. And since that incident, which was maybe Q2 of this year, he's attacked 3 more people, and now he's been confined more rigorously. But how many people, like to your point, Lee, how many people, victims, are necessary for this experiment to show it doesn't work? I just, it's absolutely frustrating, honestly.
Yep.
And that's why people have to change their posture. I mean, talked about it for years now, right? I mean, you see the news reports, people getting pushed onto train tracks, women getting assaulted, sucker punches, blah, blah, blah. And some people just don't get it until they're hurt, until they're a victim. They think it won't happen to them. Their posture has never changed. They don't learn. Some people are listeners and some people are learners, right? So if you're a listener, you're less likely to probably find yourself in a poor situation, right? But some people just don't do that, and I didn't always do that either. I'm not perfect, but some people are listeners and some people are learners. Some people have to learn the hard way, unfortunately, and that's why I always say you need to. I recommend that people get a sturdy defensive posture. Like I said, expect problems. Don't be afraid of it, but empower yourself to deal with it. I'm almost always 100% of the time traveling armed. I don't, if I'm not going to go through a metal detector, I'm going to have a firearm with me. Okay. And I'll probably have 2, but that's just a decision I made personally. And I'm trained, and I'm not an expert marksman or anything like that, but I'm trained, and I'm confident, and I know the law, and I'm first of all going to, try to eliminate any type of risk that I may fall into. But if something were to happen, I want to be prepared to deal with it. And again, I'm not going to advocate that people break the law at all. But if I'm going to go somewhere and there's a restaurant that's got a sign on the door that says they don't allow firearms, you think I care about that? If I'm going to go out to eat, I'm not going to die because of a sign. Okay. And I understand that's all driven by attorneys and lawyers and stuff like that. But almost any establishment has those. Okay. But if you're good at concealing and you're responsible and you're safe and you are trained, that's the way I look at it. So I'm not intentionally trying to defy any type of orders, but I don't want to die because I didn't have a firearm and some guy had a sign in the window and some guy walked in and robbed the place and shot it up. I want to have that opportunity to defend myself. And again, I'm very good at concealing it. And again, just having a firearm on you doesn't make you safe. Okay. You have to be proficient with that firearm. So I'm not saying just go buy a gun and think you're safe, because that's actually not true. You have to train and be proficient with that firearm or any other type of weapons that you carry for defense.
And I think that's something that has been sometimes overlooked by a lot of people in the public, is buying a weapon does not make you safe at all. Oh, go ahead, Lee. I'm sorry.
When I had special ordered a rifle, and so I got a call from the place, and this was right at the beginning of the lockdown, and I went in, and God, the line was unbelievable. It went. There must have been a dozen people in line waiting to pick up weapons. And so the lady directly in front of me, was a really nice lady and well-spoken. And so I asked her what she did, and she was an OBGYN doctor. And I said, what are you doing? She says, well, my father told me to get a gun, so I'm getting a gun. And I said, okay. And we started talking. She didn't know whether she wanted a revolver, an automatic, whether it needed a magazine or not. She knew nothing about it. She was just going to buy it because her dad told her to. And so I gave her my card and said, look, let's get together and let me teach you how to use it, how to take care of it, how to clean it, how to oil it and prevent rust and all this other kinds of stuff. And never heard from her, but I offered, and I don't know if she ever did. I do want to talk about 2 things that I think people need to be ultimately aware of, and that is the 2 greatest percentage-wise opportunities for you to be hit up, robbed, and or purse snatched or wallet snatched, or whatever you want to call it. And statistically, at least here in Texas, the 2 places where you're most vulnerable are one, when you're at a gas pump, gassing your vehicle. And the second one is walking out of a grocery store with your arms full of groceries. So one of the things you can do to mitigate the grocery store thing is you can not take those bags in your hand, but push them in a cart.
Right.
And that way you're not going to drop anything. You're not afraid of losing anything. You can let go real quick and defend yourself as soon as you have to. When you're going to the gas station, the thing you can do there is make sure you have your back solidly against either your vehicle or against the gas pump, and you got your head on a swivel. And as long as you can do those two things, I think statistically you have a pretty good chance of staying safe.
Those are very good tips. I've gotten in the habit of, I'll start the pump and I walk around my vehicle. I actually caught a fellow on it was at Guns Point, at Greens Point. For those of you who are not from Texas, you wouldn't understand the reference in Houston. Guns Point. It was a Greens Point gas station. He was going by taking pictures of the license plates, and I was pumping gas, and I walk around my vehicle while it's, because you'll hear the clunk once the pump is done. And I saw what he was doing, so I put my butt against the front of my car, so I blocked my plates. So he stopped and looked at me, and then he kind of went to the side. So I shuffled over, and he kept trying to take a picture of my license plate. So then I started walking toward him. I said, "What are you doing?" And he just ran off. I don't know if the man was insane. Everybody at the pumps was now looking at this guy running away. But don't be stationary and sit there on your phone trapped between your car and the pump, because you're in a capture box right there.
The worst thing you can do is have your face in a cell phone.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
So that's a great segue to our next question. So what are personal security steps people can take right now, practical ones that should, in theory, be easy for them to put in practice?
Well, first of all, to me, I mean, the first weapon that you have is this, right? A lot of them have touched on tonight. Say you're in a vehicle, like Lee was saying earlier, leave that one car length between you and the one in front of you, because you don't want to get boxed in. You want to be able to make a move left or right. If possible, at least one of those, you need to have an exit route. I would say, your posture, your demeanor in public, is big, because a lot of people will size you up. All right. So say you're at an intersection, you're at a red light, you're 2 or 3 cars deep, and there's a dude bebopping across the crosswalk, checking everybody out, who's paying attention, who's got a nice car, who's got what, are they busy, are they occupied, are they an easy target, But if you're paying attention, I always recommend that you look back at them. I'm not telling you to go intimidation, and look at them in a aggressive manner, but
Right.
show them that you're paying attention to them, right? And they probably don't want any of that, okay? And just change outlook, having alternative, routes and things like that, having the ability to anticipate a problem and react to that problem before it really ever becomes a problem. Does that make sense to anybody? Like, trust your instincts. If this guy is too close to me, why is he so close to me? And you don't have to find out why. You just need to relocate yourself and get away from that situation. And another thing, especially when you're driving, you're in one of the most deadliest weapons ever created by man. A vehicle is something you should never really get out of. Okay. And I'm not telling you to go crazy and go run a bunch of people over, but if your life is in danger, you have the right and you're certainly within your rights to protect yourself and get away. And, I always advocate traveling armed. Even when I go out of town, like to Vegas or whatever, I always check my firearm. It always goes with me. It's not hard to do. It's a little weird the first time you do it, but it's quite common for the airlines to do this now. So it's something that I just do. And once you get into the habit of all this stuff, this is all habit forming activity, right? Paying attention, don't get boxed in, back into your parking space versus pulling in forward. Those are all habitual routines that you can put yourself in that minimize your risk on an everyday basis. And once you get into the habit of doing it, you're not even going to think about it. And you're just doing normal things every day to eliminate your risk or to reduce your risk. You never can fully eliminate the risk that's out there. But one thing I'll say in final parting is, remember that you don't get to pick the time and place of your incident. Okay. It's usually going to pick you, and it's usually not going to be advantageous. Okay. So just think about that. You don't control these situations, but you can control how you react or, defend that or defend yourself in those types of situations. A lot of it's just common sense stuff to me, but I've been doing it a long time, and it's almost like a curse, It's kind of hard to go out and enjoy yourself fully in some places, whether you're at a concert or whatever, because you have to be that aware of what's going on around you. And once you kind of develop a proficiency at that approach, I think you'll be able to enjoy yourself more and things like that, and not be intimidated, but be empowered.
Check out what happens when you make eye contact with somebody. Just think of how you react when you're, if it's not somebody you definitely want to make contact with, like a waitress or somebody, or a cashier or somebody. Chances are, if you make eye contact with somebody and it's serendipitous, it's just accidental, you're going to immediately turn away, because that eye contact with somebody strange, you feel uncomfortable. There's a discomfort there, and people will automatically avoid that direct eye contact unless there are some ulterior motives.
I agree with that.
So if you make eye contact with somebody and they don't immediately kind of, turn away, kind of, don't harass me, I won't harass you.
Yeah.
Be suspicious. One other thing, and I'd be very interested in getting your thoughts on this, Texas Redleg, but my first father-in-law was an undercover narcotics officer in El Paso, which is a big narcotics avenue. And but he taught me, and let me see if I can get this where I can show you. He taught me that when you're talking to somebody, you typically have your hands folded, right? And so you're in this kind of a posture. And so he said, instead of carrying your weapon over here, you've got to unfold your arms to draw. And of course, you have to lift up your shirt and pull. He said, if you're going to be in a confrontation and you think there's an opportunity, just go ahead and have your hands across your stomach like this, but instead have your draw here. Then there's less movement. So if you cross draw, then there's less hand movement, and you can go into the interaction without making people think that you're going to keep your hand close to your weapon, whereas it's really actually closer to your weapon if you do a cross draw in that situation. Texas Redleg, what do you think about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do that. I mean, I typically always carry, concealed. So I carry appendix, which is right here in front. And I know a lot of people aren't big on that, but that's what I do. And I can just wear a pair of gym shorts out and a t-shirt, and nobody knows the difference. I was carrying that thing all over Las Vegas. Nobody had a clue. In the casinos, out of the casinos, it didn't matter, because I'm not going to be a victim because of some rule.
Mm-hmm.
Criminals don't give a rat's ass about signage or anything like that. Again, I'm not advocating breaking policies or laws. And if you are going to, disregard a company or a company's rules or an establishment's policies, you just got to be smart, and you got to be good about it. But to answer your question, I mean, I would say do what's most comfortable for you. I love appendix carry. A lot of people go, oh, let's buy my, private parts or whatever the case may be. But I mean, you won't do it more than once, if you make a mistake. But I've just always felt comfortable with that, because nobody expects it.
Yeah.
I mean, most bangers or whatever will just tuck it in their pants, or whatever. Or a lot of guys just carry it in a little bag or whatever. You see that quite often from time to time. But I carry my main carry is a Glock 26, which is a subcompact. but I also have another one that I'll carry from time to time, and they're very, very small, but they carry a lot of rounds. And so I feel really comfortable carrying it in that manner with a nice holster. And one of them even has a little bit of tension to it. So again, I've been doing it for years, and again, I don't want to encourage people to do things they're not ready for or comfortable with, but you need to find what fits you and what makes you most comfortable, and do it that way. That's my advice. But yeah, I've seen guys cross draw and all that stuff. I think it just comes down to personal choice.
Yeah.
But it goes back to your competency comment earlier. If you're going to suddenly change the way you carry, you need to train. If you switch from a 1911 to a Glock or vice versa, you need to start training with it immediately to get that muscle memory for your new package.
I put out
Totally.
I put out a video this morning talking about Proverbs 24, 13 through 16. And, it says that a good man can fall down 7 times, but he gets up 8, whereas a bad man only gets to make 1 mistake. And I put that with prepping. Now is the time to make our mistakes, so that when we come to whatever it is that's going to happen, we've made all our mistakes and we are right. And then the evil person has rejected getting prepared. So that's their mistake. That's the mistake that they can't get away from, because when it happens, you can't avoid that. So here's the key. And one of the things that's really strange is in the military, we spend 99 and even more % of our time training, preparing, making things a habit, for that 1% of our time in pure hell. And the reason we do that is so that it becomes automatic. It's habitual. Right. You don't think about the situation, you react to the situation. And I think that if I can give you one piece of advice, it's whatever you're going to do and whatever you think you need to do in a bad situation, begin practicing your reaction to it now and get it to where it's an automatic habit whenever it happens.
I agree. And I think another thing that you can, just to add on to that, you can go through scenarios in your head, right? So say you're at a shopping mall, or you're sitting in the parking lot of a Home Depot or Walmart or whatever. Think to yourself, go through it. What would I do if a guy walked up to me right now and demanded money or pulled a gun out or whatever? What do you do? Go through these situations in your head. I'm not telling you to go off the reservation here, but go through them in your head, and it makes you think of what you can do. Have you put yourself in a position to be boxed in? Have you put yourself in a disadvantage security wise? Can you pull out quickly? Can you get away? I'm not looking for a gunfight,
No.
with anybody. I used to work a lot of security at churches, and I would tell these other security guys, I would go, look, if there's a problem, we need to have it outside in the parking lot. We don't need to have it inside the walls of the building. Okay. And so let's keep our eyes open, and whatever may transpire, if you see something suspicious, let's try to take care of it outside the doors, not inside the building, So
Definitely.
Again, it's proactive. Like Lee said, a habitual approach to safety and security. And I think once you become proficient at it, you'll just sort of do things. You won't even really think about it. It becomes habit.
And that doesn't just go with firearms. If you are a martial artist, if you have some other implement, pepper spray to telescopic baton, nunchucks, whatever it is, your defensive item of choice, make sure you train with it, be competent with it. And
you're looking an awful lot like me there, Texas Redleg. HEB.
So another thing I wanted to mention real quick. The other day I was going to there was a concert in Dallas. The Scorpions were in town, and the wife and I were getting ready to go to that. And I was across the street talking to my neighbor, he's an insurance adjuster, but he also does woodworking on the side, right? Furniture, crap like that. And there was an incident out on the street. And of course, we're getting ready to go to a concert, which requires me to walk through a metal detector. So I did not have any security devices on me at the time. And this guy was basically berating drivers out on the street It's a school area, a school zone, and a school, elementary school. There's just a lot of congestion at, morning and afternoon when kids get out of school. And my wife was coming home and trying to pull in the driveway, but she didn't have the right of way, so she had to wait for cars to pass before she could actually turn in the driveway. Well, this guy was laying on his horn, and you could tell he was frustrated, but there wasn't anything she could do. And so he gets out of the vehicle and goes up to her car, and I'm like, oh no. And me and my buddy Thomas are watching this go down. We're like, hey, what are you doing? And he basically dressed me down and said, I need to stay out of it and mind your business. I'm like, well, she is my business. And I went like this. Oh no, and he's a big old guy. And he kind of started walking towards my buddy's driveway. And I started looking around his wood shop, and all I could find was a broken piece of 2x4. And I picked it up and just stood there like that. Okay. I mean, problem solved. But he knew that I wasn't going to just run my mouth. Okay. Yeah. But again, I immediately started looking for implements, right? And I found a splintered 2x4 and just set it right there, and no problem. But that's what I'm saying. The only reason I didn't have anything with me at the time was because, he could have been armed, and I did not expect that reaction. I didn't expect him to get out of a vehicle and berate a woman for, trying to turn into her own driveway. But nevertheless, it happened, and it went well, but it could have gone south in a hurry.
And I think there's a critical point there that people may overlook, and that is you didn't hold it up in a threatening position. You didn't threaten them with it. You didn't act like you were going to hit him with it. You had it present where he could see that you had intentions to take care of the situation should something happen, and didn't use your mouth, didn't mouth off, didn't act big or anything else. You just, I think the demeanor of how you engage in these things is 99% of the solution. Without it going to other means. And if you can carry yourself with the right demeanor and engage it in a calm and confident manner, chances are the problem's going to go away.
Yeah. And like I said, it worked out, but again, I just wanted him to know that, hey, this is great if you approach me, and so it worked out, and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I wasn't looking for trouble, but sometimes it finds you, and that's the point. Sometimes it finds.
And those are the times where, if you haven't made any preparation, negotiating, evading, defending yourself, running away, those are the ones that people they'll lock. We were know what to do.
10 minutes from leaving for this concert, which I'm not going to carry a firearm because I'm not going to go through a metal detector with one, and you have to go through metal detector concert. So that little 10-minute gap, I just had to do what I had to do, and like I said, like Lee said, it all I wanted to do was let him know that, hey, if this goes south, this is what I got. So
it just, you put it into the equation.
Yeah.
Let him decide if that equation works for him.
My first thing was, I might get my ass whipped by this guy.
So, gentlemen, what about, since we're on the subject, suggestions for self-training, self-protection on a budget? Inflation, times are not easy right now. A lot of folks unemployed, can't find decent work. What could they do? What games can they play, training exercises that will teach them some of the skills you've talked about?
Go ahead, Lee.
I've picked up a couple, just learn some basic movements on YouTube videos, and so a couple that I really like. Indonesian stick fighting, you can look that up, and the reason I chose that is because there's always going to be a piece of wood around, or a piece of metal, a pipe or something that you can pick up, and if you can understand the basic principles of Indonesian stick fighting, you can take any 18 to 24 inch piece of anything tubular or square and use that as a defensive item and protect yourself. The other one is, it helps to be handicapped, because this wooden stick is a very powerful weapon, and I can get it through any metal detector anywhere. I can get it on any airplane. Now, they may make me walk through the metal detector a couple of times because of all the metal I have in my body, but the cane's going to make it through. And there are some the British were the first ones to come up with cane fighting. And I mean, there are some fantastic tutorials about cane fighting and things you can do with a cane. So you can learn stick fighting, cane fighting on YouTube and then practice that. And that is inexpensive. And I would say as soon as you save up enough money, go to a professional and have them enhance your skills or correct any mistakes that you're doing.
For sure.
No, that's a great point. And, you know, I'll go as far as to say, you know, an ink pen, right? I mean, some people just carry pens on them, you know, I mean, if you, it's a, you know, I don't know what you call it, just a baton of some sort, right? I mean, if you hit it the right spot with it, you know, the neck or the face, people aren't going to want much more of that, but you got to be effective with it if you're going to use it, you know, just like a firearm. Don't pull it out unless you're willing to pull the trigger and use it, because somebody will take that away from you and kill you with it and run off with your gun. Okay.
Also, the tactical flashlights come in handy.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Those mags, the mag lights, the 4 batteries. Yeah, we call that an attention getter. And, you know, if you watch cops, when they pull somebody over, you know, they always got that light by the head, by the lens part, right?
Right.
And so they can just right there, it's already here. They're shining the light in the car. All they've got to do is straight ahead. They don't have to wind up or anything like that. It's right there. And so that's an effective, you know, baton, if you will. And a set of keys, same way. I mean, most people just have the little fob now, but if you got a couple of house keys on it, hell, you can go buy a nice big old school, you know, Toyota key or something, you know. They're that long. Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get a monkey fist to attach to your key ring.
Yeah.
And you know, that's
little things like that. And I encourage, you know, especially like even the women have all the cool stuff when it comes to firearms. I mean, they've got purses now that are like a set of saddlebags, and they've got a holster right in the middle of it. Hell, you don't even have to pull the damn gun out. You just stick your hand in between the saddlebags and it's mounted right there. And, you know, all you got to do is point and shoot. But there's all sorts of implements that you can use. I mean, you could use a pair of sunglasses if you had to.
Yeah.
But you got to think ahead. Like I said, keep those keys in your hand. You know, if you've got real keys, I don't have any on me right now, but, you know, you carry them like a knife in your hand, and you've got them there. You've already got them there. And so I even do that when I'm coming out of a store. If I see something I don't like walking towards me or near me, I'll just go ahead and just automatically just carry my keys like that. And it's, you know, eyes, face, whatever. I mean, you're not trying to win a contest. You're just trying to stay alive, you know, and you're trying to stop a threat. So I would encourage people to think that way. You just want to try to stop any threats that may come your way.
And one of the best pieces of advice that I got from an attorney was if you're going to carry a baseball bat in your car, make sure you have a ball and a glove too.
Yeah. So I put this survey out just when we started the chat, and I figured this would be a good topic just to kind of wind everything up. This is from our listeners right now. What concerns them the most about personal security? Securing my home was 51%, followed by something else, then safety in the street, and lastly, security in my vehicle. So security in the home, gents, any tidbits of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
I have a Ruger Security 6 357 Magnum. And so the first 3 rounds are CCI snake shot, because I know that won't go through any drywall. And then I have 3 hollow points after that. I also have a 410, and there's not very many rounds in it, but it's number 3 buckshot. But I know that 410 number 3 buckshot is not going to go through the wall either. Now, don't confuse number 3 buckshot with number 3 birdshot. Okay, you know, number 3 buckshot can do a pretty good damage. What I don't like about any kind of a long arm weapon is going around corners. If you have that weapon, that barrel sticking around the corner before you get there, they're going to pull it away from you and take it against you. So I prefer the shorter ones. Ruger 357 is fantastic.
I you know, weaponry is one thing. You know, I have that stuff too, and I love it, and it's great that we are fortunate to be in those situations and have those type of devices. But my biggest thing, my personal situation, I live in a neighborhood and I engage my neighbors, the ones that want to be engaged, and we communicate. We have each other's phone numbers. We have good lighting up. We pay attention. When I'm out of town, I let my neighbors that I trust know, hey, any activity going on over here during this time is not supposed to be going on. So please look out for my place. And then of course, incidentally, I do the same for them when they go out of town. But it's
Yeah.
I think this day and age, social connections with neighbors is sort of a thing of the past in a lot of cases. And
Yeah.
the most secure place you can ever be is in a retirement community, because those people have nothing to do.
Yep.
And they're always and I'm getting there myself. But I'm telling you, they know what's going on. If you need a police report, they can give you one. Okay.
Mhm.
And if you see a vehicle that doesn't belong in your area, don't be afraid to take a photo of it or jot the license plate number down, because people are casing neighborhoods. The catalytic
Yeah.
converter thieves out there, they're stealing gas, they're stealing anything that they may even be able to cut off, like a catalytic converter.
We
Good
actually
light.
had neighborhood watch on Facebook where neighbors, we had a lot of stay-at-home moms, and then with the COVID, a lot of folks were working from home, and you'd see on the feed every day, hey, I saw this vehicle. It's not a work truck. It's been going around this one block 3 or 4 times. Does anyone know who that is? Has anyone called the cops on, hey, there's someone's dog running down the street? But all those little tidbits of information, uh, more eyes are better for sure.
If you have
And
a Ring doorbell and Ring camera system, that's fantastic. You've probably heard mine go off a couple times while we've been doing this, but it lets you know exactly what's going on around your house. And we have the front and one side covered, and then
good
my
light.
next door neighbor has the front. So
Have some good security lighting, even some solar lighting around the eaves of your home, on the sides as well, because they don't like attention. Typically, they like to do stuff in the dark and get away. But again, there's a lot of people that just walk around with their head down and don't pay attention, and they think it won't happen to them. But if you call the police, I would encourage you to, you know, get the non-emergency number for your police department, and don't be afraid to call that number instead of 911, unless it is an emergency, of course. But call that non-emergency number and say, I think I've got a suspicious vehicle out here, and that's the verbiage to use: a suspicious vehicle. And they'll ask you some questions, but you're not saying they're doing anything. You're just suspicious of it. And there's people loitering or whatever. Just tell them the truth, and they'll probably send an officer out to check it out. But don't be afraid to use the police when necessary, because that's what they're there for. And better to call and be wrong, but your neighborhood's the best. If you've lived there a while, what belongs there and what doesn't belong there, generally, right? And so again, trust your instincts. Communicate with your neighbors. Fortify your home where you can. Use the long 3-inch screws in the door frames, and the door jambs and such, and just do the low hanging fruit, tasks that make sense and are affordable and that you can get done yourself, and good lighting. And again, paying attention. That's sort of the way I just approach it myself.
and the other thing we did was we've got one set of windows that face towards the front of the house, so that's where we planted our rose bushes. We want to make that as
Thorns.
inconvenient as possible if they're trying to get in through the window.
My home office actually faces the street, and I have a retiree across the way. So, and we have a stay-at-home mom right here. So, again, it goes to the neighbors. I know who typically will be at home. You'll see the same family with their kids running down the street, the little kids in the stroller because they're too small for school, and mom will go jogging by. So I kind of know you start learning the rhythm of your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then if something's out of place, or you're like, well, you know what? I haven't seen my retired neighbor in a few days. you may want to go outside and just take a look at his lawn, his car, make sure nothing's broken.
Yeah,
Uh, little
absolutely.
things like that really help. So,
That's one thing I can thank Snowmageddon for is it really got our neighborhood a lot more cohesive,
yeah,
sharing and exchanging ideas and helping each other during the 7 days that we were without power. So,
oh,
it
for
really
sure.
caused a lot of good as a result of that
Yeah, it's funny how
deprivation.
that works.
Huh?
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, it is.
And
Yeah,
hey, it was a really good time for everybody to test their preps too.
yeah, most definitely. And practice with your preps, the jackeries, the generators, whatever it is. It's not just self-defense.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, we're right about that hour mark, and I know you guys are busy men, and I thank you for joining me. It's always awesome to talk to you guys. I know Redleg and I were actually able to meet for coffee at one point, which was fun. So we'll need to
Yeah.
replicate that, maybe a little closer in Lee's direction where we can meet in the middle
Yeah.
somewhere. But ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for these fellows, please throw them in the chat. Let's see. And guys, go ahead. Any other parting tidbits you'd like to share while we wait on some questions?
Go ahead, Lee.
Oh, wow. You expect me to think that fast? Um, I would say, right now, um, get as much food and water as you can. Those are my two big concerns. And I would say the other one is to focus on sanitation. We've got the luggabaloos and everything else. I know what I'm going to do with my um, sewage. I know what I'm going to do with my trash and everything else. I don't know what my neighbors are going to do. And I'm trying to get them along the same lines as I am. But that stuff kind of next doors can attract the wrong things, the rodents and animals and everything else, and it can also seep over, and then you have disease. And so, I would say be very, very careful about that. If anything else, coordinate with your neighbors on how you're going to take care of that stuff when something bad happens. The other thing I would say is I invite you all on the last Thursday of the month, which is tonight at 8 p.m. Central. We have our fiction book club, and it's all about prepping. And so tonight we're doing the last book in the Stonemont series by Stephen C. Smith. So at 8 o'clock, we're going to be doing a book review of this book. And then next month, because the last Thursday is Thanksgiving, we're going to be doing it a week ahead, and we're going to be doing the A American Going Home is going to be the first book we're going to use there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'm not seeing any questions. Let's see. We've got actually some additional comments. Grow food, train riflemen, be safe. That's definitely good advice. Folks, definitely follow these two gentlemen, or Mod Mad Shad, whose channel link is also up. Definitely show him some love and follow him as well. We got Red Leg, and I think Cold War, you were up here somewhere. There we go. So, yeah, it
I
looks
don't
like
do
we. Go ahead.
I don't do a lot of content on a regular basis anymore. I'll probably increase that some just with everything that's going on. It's not that I don't want to. I've just been really busy, and a lot of the stuff that I would typically talk about are on other people's channels every day, all day long. So I'm not one that just wants to reiterate stuff that's already been watered down, if you will. But I'll do stuff from time to time. I'm always reachable if anybody has any questions for me. I'll be glad to answer them. Yeah, Lee touched on it. Keep prepping. Don't slow down. Don't forget your medication. Certainly, keep freedom seeds if you don't have that stuff available. But there's a lot of deals right now on the 2A stuff and the freedom seeds if you just look for it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be rich to own a firearm. You can go to an Academy sports store, at least in Texas right now, and you can get a decent handgun, a decent 9mm handgun for under $300 out the door with tax. You just have to you have to look, and you have to be able to go do it. And sitting around talking about I can't afford this or that, then maybe that's the case, but you can save, and you can do other things to maybe
Yeah.
get there. So
So,
don't.
folks, to Redleg's point, I actually last time I ordered a pistol on Academy, I found one for the price I wanted, I shipped it to the store. They allowed me to split it into 4 payments. You can only do it online. They split it in 4, and every 2 weeks it posts until your payments are complete. But if you want to spread it out and keep yourself in budget, that might allow you to get, a little level higher than you may have otherwise gotten, or if nothing else, keeps it affordable for you.
Wow.
So I was shocked to know that, but you can only do it online. And then I shipped it to the store, and then they texted me, and I went there and did the paperwork and made the first payment at the register, and then the other 3 went out every 2 or 3 weeks. I don't remember how it went. So
Another opportunity that some people have, at least in Texas, there's a company by the name of GT Distributors. So that's Golf Tango Distributors. And they they're really a cop shop, but they sell to the public. And it's typically, all the food groups as far as 2A stuff goes, but it's more focused on security and law enforcement, things like that. But they have a program called, it's called the Blue Label Program, and it's through Glock.
yes.
And Glock, they discount their firearms or pistols to the dealer directly for veterans, law enforcement, firefighter, first responders, veterans, active military. And what that does is it gives you $100 off that Glock, and they add a 3rd magazine for free. So it's just, they call it the Blue Label because cops, but it's basically $100 off, and you get an extra magazine, which is $35. So you're basically saving $135. And there's one I think there is one in Austin, and there's one in Dallas. There's one in Florida. They're all over the U.S., but there's not a whole bunch of them, but they're regionally placed. I think there's one in Georgia as well. But GT Distributors, Golf Tango Distributors.
Okay. So
And
definitely.
one other real quick one is I bought one of my favorite hunting rifles at a pawn shop, and I was able to put down 10% and then do monthly, weekly or monthly payments, and basically interest free. I was able to do a layaway on a 308 hunting rifle with scopes. So I was very happy with that. So check your local pawn shops as well. I don't know if other states allow you to do the time payment like they do here in Texas, but interest free, money down, and then you got it over time.
Yeah, no, definitely good advice. And again, those of you who may not have a channel, feel free to reach out. There are a bunch of creators in the chat. You can reach out to these gentlemen, myself. We don't individually know everything, but you add a handful of us together, we start actually coming up with some really good solutions to stuff. So reach out to some of the content creators, and they can try to steer you. For instance, the Blue Label program, my brother had mentioned it to me because he's a retired Navy CPO, and he loved it. And then he realized he didn't like the way Glocks felt, but that was him, not the price. He was happy about the discount. But folks, ladies and gentlemen, if there are no questions in the chat, I'm going to let these guys go. I know both of them are busy and they have plans. Texas Redleg, Cold War Prepper, thank you for joining me tonight. Hang out just a minute while I shut everything down. And ladies and gentlemen out there, God bless and Godspeed. You guys be careful out there. I hope this video was helpful to everyone. You guys take care.
Be safe. Be smart.